Hey, this is Dr. Corey Glenn with Blue Sky Bio, and I was going to make a quick video here. It shows a few different things, but main things I was wanting to show are the new keys that we've developed for the BioMax drill stop kit. So if you've not used these are primarily drills that are geared towards people that do freehand implant placement. And as you can see here, there is a built-in stopper. So this being the 6mm drill, if you were to take this in, you could only drill 6mm and then it's going to bottom out. So they're really great for freehand to not have to look at laser markings. But historically, the problem with them is that you couldn't really use them guided. At least it wasn't easy to do so. So we fixed that. We've actually developed some keys that now can be purchased as a separate thing to this kit, and it allows you to now guide these drills. Now, I'm generally not a huge fan of keyed systems, but if you get the best of both worlds here, where you could actually buy this, let's say you primarily do freehand cases and you want the ability to do guided, then this makes all the sense in the world. So now you can see that that allows you to guide these drills. So let's go through a case, and I'll just show you, because also what I was going to show is this is a case I'm about to send out that I fabricated for a doctor. This is my current preferred method for full arch implant surgeries, and what it consists of is sequential guides. Okay, so this is the first one. Now, this model does not have teeth, but the initial guide would be one that you use prior to laying any flaps or anything, and it would be tooth supported. So you would seat this on, and its only purpose is for drilling the pinholes really precisely. A tooth supported guide is always going to be more accurate than a bone supported guide, and if we can set those pinholes really precisely and then remove that guide, now make your flap, and let's say that you go ahead and pull the teeth. Okay, so we have this arch. Now we could take the bone reduction guide. That's going to go on, but the question is, how do we know if it's fully in place? Well, you can take these pins, and you'll know you're in the right spot for certain when you get the pins to re-engage here, because all of these guides share the same pinholes. Alright, so now we've got that rigidly fixated in place, and you could do your bone reduction. So anything that is sticking up above this ledge is going to represent stuff that needs to be reduced. Okay, now I'm not going to do that just for the sake of video. I've actually just printed a jaw that's already got that reduction done. But you can imagine if you were to do this and just reduce bone with a E-cutter burr down to this level, then that would be where your bone reduction ends up. Okay, so we've already got that. So once again, this is your reduced jaw, and now you would be able to put on the implant guide. Okay. And now some people will make a big deal out of, well, aren't you causing yourself a lot of headache by swapping these things in and out? You know, notice how thin these guides are. These things slide in really, really easily. So while some people may like the convenience of things like stackable guides, and those are certainly great, I stay away from them because there's a lot of lawsuits and stuff around that technique, and really I just don't find it to be all that advantageous or necessary. You can do these sequential guides, and they go in and out really easy. It's barely any harder to insert this straight onto the bone level than it is to stack it into a secondary piece, and for certain the cost is far, far less on a guide like this. Okay, another unique thing about this is those floating guide tubes. So you can see the way that I've designed this, you've got full access to see and to get irrigation in there where it's not going to be sealed out by the guide. So you're going to have less issues of overheating, and it's just overall easier to seat. And once again, you would know you're in the correct place when your pins go all the way to depth. Now, I'm using just these long kind of nail heads because this is for a doctor who uses a different system. So I don't have the pins and the drills for that, but you know, obviously don't drill through the floor of the mouth and spin a burr at 1200 RPMs down there, because there's a lot of big vessels and nerves with big names that you want to stay away from. So since he's using a different system, these guide tubes won't fit, but the principle is the same either way. And I've got a second guide that I made that will fit the drills I'm using, so I'll show you that. So same thing on the maxilla. Once you drill your pinholes, now you lay your flap. You've got a minimal profile on your bone reduction guide. This is going to slide in place. Okay, we really try to make sure that these are adjusted well, where you're not going to be fighting them to go into place. And there's not a lot of bone reduction that needs to be done on this particular case. But you would just flatten this out, and once you do, you would have it flattened to this point. Okay, so this is what that jaw would look like after bone reduction. So let's just do a couple of mock surgery drills, and that way I can show you the new keys for this safety stopper kit. So we've done the bone reduction, and now we're ready to do the drilling guide. Okay, now notice this has got no tubes in it. That's because if you're using a keyless system or something that has external keys, well, then your drill is only going to be in contact with this key. Or in the case of the fully guided keyless drills, you don't have any cutting surface that's engaging this plastic. So it would be redundant to add any guide tubes, plus it adds a lot of cost. So a couple notable things here. I've marked them in pencil just so you can see them better, but there's 2 disto-angulated implants staying mesial of the sinus on the maxilla here, and those are planned to use 30-degree multi-unit abutments. So when you're using multi-unit abutments in the angled versions, you're always going to have issues with playing with the timing to get your cylinders uprighted. These are built-in timing marks so that when you rotate your implant in, all you're doing is you're aligning a flat exactly to that line, and if you do that, your multi is going to be in the exact right timing to make the cylinders parallel to everything else. Okay, so I'll just do a couple osteotomies here. We'll go ahead and put in some pins to make sure this is in the right position. Okay. Now, on a case like this where the patient is dentate, I always make more pinholes than I think I'm going to need, because it's not uncommon at all that during the extraction you might break out a buccal wall, and if it just so happened that your pin was right there where the buccal wall broke out, well, now you don't have anything to stabilize. So err towards creating more pins than you think is necessary, because it might save you some trouble in positioning the guide should something break during placement. Alright, if I can find the right size here to go into this hole, well, the heck with it. We'll just go with 3 pins here. Alright, so with this, we could take the key, and you can see that this one, there's actually 2 outer diameters. We have this set of keys that has a 6.2 millimeter outer diameter. If you're using these, then you can basically run every drill in this kit through those. Sometimes you're going to have scenarios where the implants need to be too close together, and you need actually a smaller key. For those scenarios, we have these 2. And they'll get you to the same end result, but these only go up to the 3/0 drill. Okay, so let's start with the end here that says 2.0. You can see that, and we can just simply put this into whatever site you want. Okay, and then grab your drill. Now this is why in general I don't love keys. You know, here again, this is not the most ideal way to do guided. It's giving you the ability to do guided with a kit that really wasn't designed for it. And so you can see here that this really tightly controls my trajectory. Now depth of placement is actually controlled still by the stop. So when that bottoms out on bone, then you know you're at depth. All right, so we can go to depth here. I'm obviously not using irrigation or pumping motion like you should if you were doing this for real. But while we have that key out, just go around and do it in every site. Okay, so that's our 2/0 drill, and I just started with this 6 millimeter length because if you look at this, this is going to have the longest portion that can be guided. So I would recommend starting with that, and then if you want to jump from there up to say the 10 millimeter length, I don't think that's going to be any problem whatsoever. So I'll do down to my final length here with the 2/0 drill. Alright, so that's all the osteotomies in the 2/0, and now we could swap out drills. And I'm just going to jump straight to the 10 millimeter length in the 2.5. And you know, depending on how good you feel things are fitting and engaging, you might even jump straight up to the 3/0 drill. But just for demonstration's sake, I will go ahead and do the 2/5. Okay. So now let's go ahead and grab the 3mm key. Okay, that's going to be for these purple drills, and I'll put that in. And this time I've gone up to the 11.5mm drill just because I know I've got room apically. All right. Okay, so now we've done all of the drilling. This would probably be where I would stop in this case if I was really doing it on a patient, because I want these undersized if we're doing immediate load. Now we could do the guided implant placement. Now this is another cool new thing that we've come out with, and this is a variable height carrier with no stops on it. Now why would you want that? Well, imagine if you're doing guided placement and you're using the standard carrier, which has this built-in stop. So you're carrying the implant in, and when that stop engages here, you've got to quit cranking it, because if you don't, let's say you're playing with the timing still and trying to line something up, well, the moment that stop touches, regardless of where you are, you need to quit cranking, because if you continue, only one of two things is going to happen. You'll either break your guide as the implant pulls in deeper and goes beyond the level of this tube, or what will be more common is that the implant won't be able to get deeper, and now it's just spinning, and now you're augering out all your primary stability. So that's particularly important on a case like these where you're trying to get an exact timing. And so this is a carrier that has the laser markings so you can know how deep you are, but it's not going to really matter either way. So if I need to, you know, turn it 60 degrees to get the timing right, it's not going to affect anything about that. So let me show that. We've got the implant here. So I'm going to go ahead and place the implant on the driver. Hopefully you don't do your surgeries barehanded with dirty fingernails. And we'll carry this into the site. I can get it started with fingers. And so we're going to go ahead and crank this thing in. Now again, I like the visibility that we get with this floating tube design. So I'm cranking this in. You could either eyeball it, or you could have determined, you know, an exact depth on these predetermined marks. I've not done that here. Again, this is for a different system. But what I am concerned with is getting that timing right. So you'll notice on this driver that there's vertical hash marks on basically each flat for the implant. And so when I'm at the depth generally that I feel like I need to be, which I need to go a little deeper, I want these a bit subcrestal. Okay, that's probably good right there. And now I just need to rotate until that timing mark lines up right there. Now, having done that, when I go and put my multi-unit abutment on, I know that that's going to emerge through the right spot. So I'm not going to do all of these, but let's just place one other implant just so you can kind of see the parallelism of the multi-unit cylinders. So let's come over here to this implant farthest away from that one, and we can drive this implant in. Now the timing on this one won't matter because this is a straight multi-unit, so the timing is really not a problem either way. So now we can lose all of that, and imagine you've got all 6 implants instead of just 2. Now I'm pre-making my hybrids. This is actually one of the 3D printed materials that is approved for long-term use in the mouth. It's not necessarily approved for long-term hybrids, but I'll tell you, I've done about 3 or 4 of these so far, and all of them have held up to this point. So it's a really promising thing. I'm going to go ahead and place the multi onto the front one. I'm just doing this by finger since I don't have the multi-wrench handy. We've got a cylinder on that one. And now here is our angled multi. And again, since I've lined the timing up, I should be able to simply take this and just find the direction that orients it up towards the mesial. We'll screw that in. And now we can put on the multi-cylinder. And you can see you've got pretty good parallelism between these. Now if I take the pre-made hybrid, this should slide on exactly. And this is an interesting new way I've started doing the fixation, the indexing of these. Used to, I would basically orient it onto one of these. So you would seat this in the same way, the pinholes line up. But a simple method that I've started doing here recently is just to create these little feet that are going to index on the ridge itself, and they overlap just a little bit, so that orients it anterior posterior, side to side, and vertically it's going to maintain about 3 millimeters of space for your tissue so that you're not going to accidentally sink this all the way down. But what I was trying to point out was, look, this is pre-made holes all figured out in the software, and things just drop on perfectly. In fact, this is designed such that if I was to put all 6 implants in and the temp cylinders, as long as I did the guided surgery correctly, then this entire temporary is going to drop right in over the top of that, and you can do the pickup all at once. So just a couple things I thought would be useful to see. These keys are great if you already have the drill stop kit, and I think we have that kit in both the Biomax, the internal hex, maybe even the Quattro. Then this is going to give you the option to do some guided surgery with this kit as well. And then also the guided driver that does not have a vertical stop. I think for these all-on-4 type cases, anytime you're doing angled multi-unit abutments, this is going to be really helpful for getting you to dial in that timing without worrying about stripping out the osteotomy. So I hope you found that helpful.